C got the fucking juice.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of JT Sports Live. I'm your host, JT, here to give my reactions to week 12 of the college football season. Georgia stomps Tennessee 31-17. If you're a Tennessee fan and you're about to come into this chat talking about how you got screwed by the refs, you're going to get blocked. You got your ass kicked. This was a thorough butt whooping. And I actually picked you to cover plus 9.5, and you couldn't even do that. I trust me, I got a lot of things to say about Georgia's beatdown on Tennessee. We also got to get into the upset of the day. I told y'all a few days ago. As a matter of fact, all week long, I've been telling y'all that Florida was going to upset LSU. Oh, man. Not only did Florida upset LSU today, but they broke this team. You got Brian Kelly yelling at his receivers, and then Kyron Lacy coming back a few drives later and snapping on him. Ooh, Ohio State fans are sleeping on Indiana. You playing a dangerous game, Ohio State fans, thinking that you're facing the same Indiana team that you've seen the last 5 decades. Let me tell you something. Kurt Signetti, in 1 year as the head coach of the Hoosiers, has led this program to their best season ever. He's a really good coach. I don't think anybody should be guaranteeing that Ohio State is going to get an easy win against Indiana. I think some of you Buckeyes fans are tripping, and you need to put a little bit more respect on the Hoosiers going into next week's game. The Prime effect on college football. Not only has Coach Prime helped Colorado reach new heights, but he's also brought a new audience to college football. I want to give some thoughts on that. South Carolina, how about the Beamer boys, man? They were in a dogfight with Missouri. They come out on top. Lenora Sellers throws 5 touchdown passes. The Gamecocks are surging, people. Surging. And when it comes to the Heisman debate, go ahead and give it to Travis Hunter. You're not about to get an argument out of me, even though I'm still rooting for my guy, Cam Ward, to win it. But you might as well just give it to Travis Hunter at this point. He is, without a doubt, the best player in college football. When you play on both sides of the ball, how do you not get the right to call yourself the best in the nation? Ashton Jeanty only plays on offense. He doesn't play defense, too. So you might as well give it to Travis Hunter. The definition of the most outstanding player in college football is the dude who gives his team the best chance to win. And how is that description not describing Travis Hunter? He plays both ways. He's impacting the game on defense and impacting the game on offense. So how does he not deserve to win the Heisman, man? Some of y'all are hating on Travis Hunter. Give the brother the Heisman already. All right, you need to separate your hate for Deion Sanders and separate it from Travis Hunter. They are not the same person. Stop hating on Travis. This brother is the best player in college football. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in, wherever you're watching, YouTube, X, Facebook. Hit that like button, subscribe, follow if you're new. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss when we drop new content and when we go live. Shout out to Kate Roan with the $5 donation. Appreciate it as always. She says, powerful JT Sports Live on another victorious Coach Prime college football weekend. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well done, Gators, too. Can't wait to hear all the JT takes. Hey, I appreciate you for tuning in, Kate Roan. Greatly appreciate you with the $5 donation. And let's dive into it, man. Georgia stomps Tennessee at home 31-17. I am shocked. Not with Georgia winning, but in the fashion that they did, because I thought Tennessee plus 9.5 was an absolute lock. I was expecting this to be one of those old-fashioned defensive slugfests where the final score is 16-13, and that didn't happen. Tennessee's offense didn't really get anything going after 3 out of 4 of their first drives. When they end up putting points up on the board, it goes in a halftime tied 17-17. And At one point in this game, Tennessee was up 10-0. You was thinking that Tennessee was about to come into Georgia's trap and take over their trap, but Georgia responded. Carson Beck was balling all night long. This is the best game that Georgia has played all year long. This game was more impressive than their win against Texas a few weeks ago. It's hard to gauge how good Georgia actually is because certain moments during this season you watch them and you think Georgia has fallen off. This is it for Georgia. When they got blasted by Alabama, although they came back in that game, you had concerns about the Bulldogs. And then they lose in really ugly fashion, the Ole Miss after beating Texas. And before that Texas game, you were thinking that, okay, this Georgia team does have a shot going on the road against Austin, and they end up pushing around Texas. And then you're thinking to yourself, okay, if you beat Texas, then you definitely are going to dominate Ole Miss. But the complete opposite happens. You get dominated by Ole Miss and you lose that game 28-10. It was one of the worst losses that we've seen the Bulldogs suffer under Kirby Smart in recent memory. And then you have this big game where your playoff hopes are on the line against Tennessee. And although Georgia was a pretty big favorite in this game, there were still a lot of skeptics out there. There were still doubters. There were people who wanted Mike Bobo fired. There were people saying that you can't trust Carson Beck in a game like this. But what Georgia has shown time in and time out this season is that they have the true heart of a champion. And I don't mean to say that to be cliche, but this is a team that they just find new ways to win. And tonight they won this game because Carson Beck had an outstanding performance. 346 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was also making some dynamic plays with his legs. Carson Beck played like the best quarterback in college football tonight. This is the most points that Tennessee's defense has given up all year long. This is the best defense that Tennessee has had in program history. And for Georgia to play the way they did tonight was nothing short of impressive, because anytime it looks like the chips are down, Georgia's down and out, they just find a way to hit another gear, and they just continue to find ways to pull off these wins. And it's always different from the last one. The way they beat Texas was much different from the way they beat Tennessee tonight. Against Texas, Carson Beck had no touchdowns and 3 interceptions. They won in spite of him. And tonight, they played an all-around great game. After Tennessee's first 4 drives, when they scored on 3 out of 4 of them, their offense didn't do anything else. They got shut down in the second half. Nico Iamaleava, he couldn't complete a pass more than 20 yards downfield to save his life. And he's a very massive disappointment. After Georgia was able to kind of settle down and get back into the game, Nico just got rattled. And I expect him to improve, but it's just, when you think about the hype that he had coming into this season, how Tennessee fans thought that he could be a Heisman contender, once Tennessee stopped playing the Kent States of the world and they got into conference play, Nico looked nothing more but an average quarterback. And with this loss, I don't even know if Tennessee is going to be able to make it into the playoffs, because you could end up getting snubbed for a playoff spot by Indiana. You know, this was a game where I thought that Tennessee, although I didn't expect them to win, I thought they would be able to keep it close. You got a great defense. Your offense has a lot of weapons at wide receiver, and you're facing a Georgia team that is as vulnerable as they've ever been the last couple of years that they've been coached by Kirby Smart. This just was a shocking performance, in my opinion, with how Tennessee played. This was not a good game on their behalf. And I don't give a damn about the missed calls that the refs have. I hate how fans want to use refs as an excuse for why they lost. You lost this game by more than 2 touchdowns. You got outplayed, outcoached, and outclassed by Georgia tonight. I don't give a damn about the missed calls that the refs have, man. If you play better football, if Nico lived up to the hype that all you Vols fans were giving him coming into this season, you easily should have been able to go toe-to-toe with Georgia tonight. This isn't a stat Georgia team. This is one of the worst Georgia teams that we've seen on the field in the last 4 years. And this is supposed to be one of the best teams that you've ever had under Josh Heupel. And what do you have to show for it? A 31-17 beatdown in Athens, Georgia. I expected more out of Tennessee in this game. I really did. I really thought you were going to cover that 10-point spread, and you didn't come nowhere close to doing that. Georgia still owns you. Why do they call this a rivalry? This is not a rivalry. This is a one-sided affair. Every time Georgia plays Tennessee, they know it's a guaranteed dub. Nobody was ever concerned inside Georgia's building about if they were going to make it to the playoffs because they knew they were going to kick your ass, man. Tennessee, for as good as what they looked after they beat Alabama, they haven't played at that same level. You lose to Arkansas. You almost lose to Billy Napier in Florida at home. Tennessee just is not that good of a team. And I wouldn't be against the committee if they were to leave you out of the playoffs because you don't look better than Texas A&M. You don't look better than Alabama, who's beating more ranked teams than you. You know, Tennessee, for as hot as how they started the season off, it's really disappointing how they finished this season losing to Georgia the way that they did. I really expected this to be an all-time classic. I was not expecting for Carson Beck to pull a masterclass performance out of his ass. This was a great night for not just Carson Beck, but for everybody on that Georgia Bulldogs team that was doubted. From Kirby Smart to Mike Bobo to Carson Beck to the receivers. I didn't see any receiver depth issues tonight. It seemed like everybody they put in that wideout was making plays against a secondary that's been shut down all year long. Tennessee got humbled tonight. I don't want to hear anything about the refs. The refs are not why you lost this game. You lost this game because you just didn't belong on the same field tonight as the Georgia Bulldogs, man. Georgia once again shows why you should never count out the heart of a champion. No matter how down and out this team may look, you never know what they're capable of. And Georgia played like they were desperate tonight. And there's an old saying that one of the WWE announcers used to say, desperate men do desperate things. And Georgia was pulling out all the tricks tonight. Carson Beck saved his best performance for when Georgia needed it the most. And that was this game that pretty much was a playoff elimination matchup for them. Georgia loses this game, there are no playoff hopes. There is no shot at winning the national championship. There is no shot at getting back to the SEC title game. When Georgia's back is against the wall, this is when they're at their best. When you doubt them, when you count them out like we did a few weeks ago against Texas, they played their best football. And they did it tonight against a Tennessee squad that a lot of us thought was a really good ball club. And they give up 31, the most they've given up all season. Prior to this game, Tennessee's defense barely even allowed you to score 20 points. The offensive line played well. Everything that was criticized and scrutinized when it came to Georgia's team wasn't an issue. Because Georgia showed when they got to play their best football, when they got to, have a game where they can't make any mistakes and they got to lock in and focus, they always get it done. And that's what separates Georgia from the other teams that are in the middle of the pack, Tier 2 programs in this conference. They don't have championship DNA. That's why Georgia won this game. Florida beat LSU 27-16. A lot of people are calling this an upset, but if you've been following the podcast over the last week, we're not calling this an upset because I told y'all all week long leading up to this game that Florida was going to walk out with the victory. DJ Lagway, he showed he's the future this afternoon with how well he played against LSU. He had a couple of big throws. his athletic ability wasn't really shown that much due to him still trying to get back to 100% from that calf injury he suffered a few weeks ago. But he played well enough to give Florida the edge over LSU in this game. And he outplayed Garrett Nussmeier. You see, when we went into halftime and it was 13-13, I was talking to a few Florida fans and they was like, man, JT, you're confident we're going to win this game, but I'm not, because LSU is going to make good adjustments in the second half. And I was like, LSU making good adjustments in the second half? Have you been watching LSU football this year? Because they do the polar opposite. They implode in the second half of games. Every time you watch LSU in the third quarter, it's the same old story every single time. You got Garrett Nussmeier turnovers. The fumble that he had today was just absolute comedy. He fumbles the ball. One of the offensive tackles scoops it up. He's running, trying to pick up the first down, and he ends up fumbling the ball. LSU just doesn't know how to win close games, and they got outscored 14-3 in the fourth quarter. You know, everything that Florida needed to go right to win this game went their way. We knew that LSU's run defense has been their biggest weakness all year long. They got carved up against South Carolina. They gave up 185 and 4 tutties against Alabama and Jalen Milroe. Marcel Reed scored 3 touchdowns and 3 possessions against this squad. LSU was an overrated team from the jump. And I'm happy that Billy Napier was able to walk out with the win that he desperately needed. This win now means that Florida is only 1 win away from getting the 6 wins. And although making it to a bowl game is not the standard in Florida, the standard is to compete for SEC titles and be on the national championship stage. But when you think about all of the pressure that Billy Napier had coming into this season, how difficult Florida's schedule was, the fact that he was able to put this team in position to go 6-6, make it to a bowl game, is a good enough job for him to earn 1 more year. Because if you got all of your young players playing well, like DJ Lagway, Jordan Ball, who had a 55-yard touchdown with 3 minutes, 48 seconds to go in the fourth, which sealed the win for Florida. Think about how good this team's going to be next year when all of these younger players have an added year of development and training through spring and fall camp. Florida could be a sneaky team in 2025. This is a very young team, and the fact that they were able to take down an LSU team that most people picked to win, I took Florida +4 as an underdog, and everybody was looking at me crazy. They was like, JT, you really trust Billy Napier? It's not that I trusted Billy Napier. It's that I trusted LSU to be the team that I've seen these last couple of weeks be unable to win games. Why do you think Brian Kelly's always saying, man, it's always tough to win on the road in the SEC? You know, the gap between us and them isn't really that wide, man. Say me the sob stories, Brian Kelly. Say me the sob stories. LSU, they missed the field goal early in this game. They get stopped on 4th down early in this game. And yet, when they got rolling, it felt like they were about to take control of this game, but they were never able to put Florida away. They kept Florida in it. And Billy Napier, although he doesn't have a great win-loss record at Florida, he has shown the ability several times these last couple of years down there in Gainesville that he can keep it close with some of the best teams in this conference. They nearly beat Tennessee a few weeks ago. Florida was severely underestimated in this game. Billy Napier, the thing with him is that he's not that good of a play caller on offense, and he also has really questionable game management in certain moments. But this afternoon, Florida stayed true to who they were. They ran the ball well. Their defense played outstanding. And the way Florida is playing right now is way different from how this team started the season. I remember when Miami came and invaded the swamp. Same thing Texas A&M did as well. And after that Texas A&M loss, when all of Florida's donors and their alumni back in put all the money together to buy out Billy Napier, they didn't pull the trigger. And Billy Napier was able to right the ship. The coaching staff had to make some adjustments. The defense isn't giving up a bunch of blown coverages left and right. This is one of the most impressive coaching jobs that I've seen in a while. And I get it. Florida, there's nothing really to be hyped up about. At best, they're going to be going 6-6, 7-6 if everything goes right and they win their bowl game. But the adjustments that Billy Napier was able to make when all the talk for him getting fired was at its peak, and he was able to tune out the noise, and he was able to not lose this locker room. That's what impressed me the most about this season for Florida and Billy Napier. No matter how loud the noise on the outside got, Billy Napier in this locker room, they never lost faith. They never quit on him. And that's why he has been given another year to prove himself down in Gainesville. And with this win this afternoon, it looks like that was a really good decision. It's not like LSU is a bad team, but right now this team is just spiraling out of control. And this loss to Florida today, it broke LSU. It really did. Because now we got to get into another topic of discussion. Man, after losing 27-16 on the road to Florida and Billy Napier, look, the writing is on the wall when it comes to Brian Kelly and what is in store for the next couple of years with him being a head coach at LSU. And that is, you're always going to be a disappointment every single season. This was the same guy who was unable to at least get you to the SEC title game with 3 first-rounders. Jaden Daniels, who won the Heisman, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., all those guys are balling out in the NFL, and yet the most Brian Kelly could do with them is win 9 games. Most teams that have a Heisman finalist end up playing in their conference championship game. This is also the same person who at Notre Dame always made excuses for not having enough talent, for being the reason why Notre Dame consistently got dominated in big games, why they got dominated in the playoffs and in the national championship against Bama, 12 years ago? And now you see a guy who's continuing to struggle with the same issues that he had at Notre Dame, despite him having access to all the best resources at LSU. You want to know why? Because Brian Kelly is an overrated coach. LSU has the worst big-name head coach in all of college football. Brian Kelly, up to this point, during his tenure at LSU, he's 4-8 against ranked teams. Kalen DeBoer coached circles around this dude. For all the excuses that Brian Kelly made at Notre Dame for why he couldn't get them over the hump, Kalen DeBoer was able to lead Washington to a national championship appearance, only having the 34th rated roster in college football. That was one of the worst rosters to ever make it to a national championship game in the last 14 years. But you want to know how Kalen DeBoer was able to overcome not having a roster stacked with blue chips? It's because he's a great coach. He's a great strategist. He knows how to make adjustments. He knows how to get the most out of his players. Brian Kelly doesn't get the most out of his players. Do you not see how many times Brian Kelly is yelling at his kicker? He's yelling at his wide receivers today. He's cussing out one of his wide receivers on the sidelines just for a few drives after later. Kyron Lacey, arguably one of the best players on this team, ends up cussing him out on the sidelines, and he ends up having this. One thing about Brian Kelly that I do like about him is that he has some of the funniest facial expressions when you watch these LSU games. Like every time LSU gives up a big play or they end up turning the football over with Garrett Nussmeier, who I guess this dude is a quarterback cosplaying as Santa, because that's what he is when he's on the field. When you go up against Garrett Nussmeier, you know this dude is going to give you a few early Christmas presents. That's why I knew that LSU was going to be in trouble against Florida, because this is a team that beats themselves. And what does that show about you as a head coach? When your team beats themselves, you're not doing a good job of coaching up this ball club. You made all these excuses why you couldn't win that Notre Dame with less, and look at what you're doing with more. Less. Brian Kelly is never going to win a national championship at LSU. I saw my guy JD Paquel for On3 release a video reiterating his confidence in Brian Kelly, and I strongly disagree with it. There are coaches like Mike Elko, Lane Kiffin, and Kalen DeBoer who've done more with less at programs that don't have all of the greatest resources, that don't have access to all of the NIL money to buy up all the best players out of the portal and out of high school. When you can do more with less, it shows that you're a good coach. But when you're doing less with more, it shows that you're incompetent. And that's what Brian Kelly is. And what's funny is that LSU fans want him gone, but he signed the 10-year deal worth $95 million. He ain't getting fired until 2031. I didn't even know that Brian Kelly signed this lengthy of a contract. I knew that he got really well paid, but I didn't know LSU was crazy enough to give this bozo a 10-year contract. Are you kidding me? Yeah, LSU, they're stuck with Brian Kelly for the foreseeable future, and you're not going to be a bad team with Brian Kelly. You're never going to win like 5-6 games. You're not going to be like what FSU is right now under Mike Norvell with Brian Kelly, but you're going to be a consistent team that is good, but not good enough to get into the playoffs. And when the playoffs expanded from 4 to 12 teams, everybody made it seem like LSU was a virtual lock to make it into this thing. But before the season, I said this team was overrated because I didn't trust Brian Kelly. Look at what he did at Notre Dame, made excuses for why he couldn't recruit well, why he couldn't win the big games. When you are somebody who makes constant excuses, it's one of those things that just shows that you're not willing to make adjustments. You're just saying, I need more of this, I need more of that, instead of holding yourself accountable. Why do you think his players are turning on him? Why do you think Kyron Lacey was cussing him out on the sidelines? Because he doesn't hold himself accountable. After every press conference, he always says, this loss is on us. We got to be better as coaches. And then right after proceeds to throw guys under the bus. Brian Kelly just sucks as a head coach. You were better off just keeping Ed Orgeron. Hell, at least Ed Orgeron, y'all like to say that he just got a great situation where he just walked into all these great assistant coaches. He happened to get lucky, was striking gold with Joe Burrow in the transfer portal. I mean, what about Brian Kelly? His teams weren't as good as that 2019 LSU squad, but they weren't too far off. You had 3 first-round picks last year and the Heisman Trophy winner, and the best you get out of that was 9 wins. You LSU fans got a nightmare on your hands down there in Baton Rouge for the next 5 to 6 years until you can afford to buy out the rest of Brian Kelly's contract, because all the rest of his tenure is going to be is nothing but disappointment. You're not going to be a bad team, but you're going to be nothing more but an above average, middle of the pack squad with Brian Kelly as your head coach, because there's too many good coaches in this league now compared to what there were before Brian Kelly arrived in Baton Rouge. Now you got Lane Kiffin, Kalen DeBoer, Mike Elko. All these dudes are coaching circles around Brian Kelly right now. All these dudes have the resume of doing more with less, while Brian Kelly has always been a dude that's made excuses for why he needs this, why he needs that to win. I feel bad for you LSU fans, man, but he ain't going nowhere anytime soon. He's locked in for at least a few more years with that 10-year contract y'all gave him. And it was just embarrassing for him to lose to Billy Napier in Florida as a 3.5-point favorite too? Come on, man. It sucks to be an LSU fan right now because you're stuck with this bozo as your head coach for the next couple of years, cussing out his players. He need to cuss his own self out. Come on, man. You Ohio State fans got a reality. I don't even want to start off with that. You Ohio State fans, in 1 week from now, are in for a huge reality check when you play Indiana, because I've been hearing way too many of you Buckeyes fans underestimating and sleeping on this Indiana squad. Man, we ain't worried about Indiana, man. We've been beating these clowns for damn near a century. Newsflash, this is the best Indiana team that you have ever played. Kirk Cignetti, in only 1 year being the head coach of this program, has led this team to more wins than they've ever had in the history of their football program. This is their first 10-win season ever. If you can turn around the team that's been a perennial bottom feeder in the Big Ten in only the span of 1 year, you're an elite head coach. This is an Indiana squad that they may not be as talented as what Ohio State is, but what gives them a good shot to take down Ohio State on the road is that they're a well-coached team that plays true to who they are, and they don't beat themselves. They don't have a lot of turnovers. They don't commit a lot of dumb penalties, and they don't rely strictly on talent to win. They win based off scheme and great coaching. Meanwhile, Ohio State, for everybody that likes to say, well, Indiana barely beat Michigan. You barely beat Nebraska, who started out, 5-1, 5-0, and has lost every game since? And you only beat them 21-17. Meanwhile, Indiana beat those boys so bad that the game was over by the end of the second quarter. Indiana deserves way more respect than what you Ohio State fans are giving them. And I can't wait for this game to kick off at noon on Fox next Saturday, man, because if Ryan Day is the fraud that a lot of people make him out to be, even though Ryan Day is a really good coach, Ohio State fans are going to be in shambles after this game takes place, man, because if you lose to Indiana, it's going to show that it's not about talent. It's about coaching. It's about culture. That's what Kirk Cignetti has built. He doesn't need to spend $20 million on a team to go undefeated and turn around a program like Ohio State does. Ohio State needed $20 million to be able to win it all this year, supposedly. But yet, Indiana's 10-0, and yeah, their schedule's been relatively weak. They have the fourth best point differential in America. They're winning games by an average margin of victory of 25.2. That's impressive. And this is a football program that has only had 5 winning seasons in the last 29 years. I think it's incredibly ignorant to ride off this Indiana squad and just make it seem like this is going to be another walk in the park for Ohio State. I watch Ohio State play Northwestern, right? I took these clowns minus 28.5 on my parlay, and they're the only team that didn't cover because these clowns on 4th and 2, instead of running the football with Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins, what was supposed to be one of the best, if not the best running back duo in all of college football, these fools don't have enough confidence to allow them to pick up 2 yards, so they want to start throwing fade routes on 4th and 2. What kind of play calling is that? You know, for as talented as what Ohio State is, this is a team that doesn't play up to the level of talent that they have on this roster. Indiana, on the other hand, they play their A-plus game every time they walk out on there on the field. Indiana is about to give Ohio State a rude reality check in a week from now, and I can't wait for it. And I believe that Indiana has a great chance to win this game. Curtis Wark, I know a lot of you Ohio State fans don't know about this dude, but he's played himself into the Heisman discussion with how efficient he's been. He's been better than that crazy lunatic you got, Will Howard, at quarterback. Will Howard, he's an okay quarterback, but he's not that big of an upgrade from Honda McCord. He doesn't really make guys better. He's an okay athlete, doesn't have a strong arm. I mean, Will Howard, every game you watch Ohio State play, he has 2-3 plays that make you go, bro, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are you looking at out there? If you had Curtis Wark, your offense would be way more efficient than what it is with Will Howard. Will Howard isn't a bad quarterback, but he's not a good quarterback. Curtis Wark actually has been the best quarterback in the Big Ten this year if we're going off efficiency, statistics, and metrics. This is a better Indiana team than what a lot of you Ohio State fans are giving them credit for. This is not the same Indiana team that you've been beating up on for the last century. This is an Indiana team that actually has a good coach. They don't beat themselves, and they play a brand of football that wins, which is we're not going to rely on just trying to out-athlete you. We're going to out-scheme you, we're going to out-coach you, and we're going to play the best of our ability. Ohio State, on the other hand, you got to buy all these players in the portal, all these great coaches, all these great guys out of high school like Jeremiah Smith. Indiana doesn't have none of that, which makes it all more impressive. This game reminds me a lot of when Kalen DeBoer outcoached Dan Lanning twice last year when Washington played them. Both times before that game, Washington was a double-digit underdog, and they outclassed Oregon twice because Dan Lanning got outcoached by Kellen DeBoer, although Kellen DeBoer had a far more inferior roster compared to what Dan Lanning had at Oregon at the time. The reason for Washington being able to beat Oregon twice was because they were a well-coached team. With the transfer portal and NIL, the gap between the average teams and the best teams in every conference isn't that wide anymore. And a lot of you Ohio State fans are about to find out very soon that there's a difference between being the team that has to rely on talent and being the team that doesn't necessarily need to be super stacked at every position because they can rely on coaching. They can rely on teaching their players the fundamentals, not committing stupid penalties, being able to perform in high pressure moments. That's what Indiana has done. Although they haven't played a difficult schedule, I expect them to give you a tough game because you don't need to play a tough schedule to realize that you got a well-coached team like what Indiana has. They don't get penalized often. They got a really low turnover margin. This is going to be a great game. I'm not saying you're going to lose, but I'm not saying that Indiana is about to walk in Columbus and get spat on and chewed out. Indiana's going to give you a really good game. I promise you that. And I can't wait for the official odds to come out because if Indiana is anything less than a touchdown dog, I'm taking it because it's an easy lock. A lot of you Ohio State fans haven't been paying attention to how good Indiana's been and how true of a phenomenally Kirk Cignetti is as a head coach. This brother has won everywhere he's been instantly. He won right out the gate his first year at James Madison University. Come on now, if you're winning at James Madison and you're doing this same crap at Indiana, you're an elite coach. Y'all need to put some more respect on Kirk Cignetti because he's been a better coach this year than Ryan Day. And I love Ryan Day. But if he was on that sidelines when you were going up against Oregon, I bet you wouldn't have had that late game blunder when Will Howard couldn't keep track of the clock. Indiana, they're about to give Ohio State fans a rude awakening in a couple of days, and I can't wait for it. Shout out to my guy, Eddie Paludo. Appreciate you, man. He says, and I'm rooting for you, man. He says, go off, bro. I love football, but it's embarrassing. Shout out to Kate Roan. Shout out to Witty Banter 96. He said, Georgia didn't stomp anybody. Here y'all go with the excuses, man. Here y'all go with the excuses, bro. I ain't even about to get into it with you tonight. All I'm going to say is that Georgia played their best football against Tennessee, and Tennessee's defense ain't allowed more than 20 points all season long. You know, Tennessee just gets owned every time they play Kirby Smart. This game ain't a rivalry. It's a one-sided affair, which is why we need to stop calling it a rivalry. Because every time Tennessee plays Georgia, they always lose. Shoot, Kirby Smart had to overcome some bad calls in that Texas game, and his quarterback throwing 3 interceptions in that game. Tennessee fans always got an excuse for losses. Tell me what Tennessee could have did better to win this game. Maybe that quarterback that you're paying all that NIL money to, that you flew out on a private jet on a few occasions, maybe you should tell him to step his game up. Instead of wanting to blame the refs. Carson Beck's out there balling, looking surgical, and meanwhile we got Tennessee fans. The refs, they want Georgia to win. They always against us. Bruh, stop blaming the refs, man. Blaming the refs is such a damn cop-out. The officiating is bad. In the NFL, college football, every sport has bad officiating. My high school coach used to always say, if you don't want the refs to dictate the outcome of the games, don't allow the games to be in a position where the refs can dictate the outcome. If you just play good football, you execute, and you dominate like how you should, you don't have to worry about the referees making bad calls that cost you a game. There were no calls in this game that I felt costed Tennessee. What costed Tennessee is that you just got your butt kicked for 60 minutes. That's it. I'm getting tired of people trying to always use the refs as an excuse for why they lose. Deion Sanders, the effect that he has had not only on Colorado, but on college football as a whole, needs to be talked about. Because the prime effect is in full force right now. Because I was on Instagram a few days ago, and I was just scrolling through a couple of Colorado posts that they had put up on the socials, and I was just reading through the comments, and I was really surprised at the amount of people who were saying that, yeah, I've never watched college football before. When Deion Sanders got hired by Colorado to be their head coach, that's when I started actually paying attention to college football. You have people like my grandparents who never really watched college football that much that are tuning in to every game just because they want to see Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders has brought a different audience to college football. And that is an audience that college football has normally struggled to get, which is the diehard NFL audience or just the casual football fan. You see, the effect that Deion Sanders has had on college football is the same effect that Taylor Swift has somewhat had on the NFL. Anytime the NFL posts that Taylor Swift is going to be at a game, they always get a massive ratings boost. That's why they show her so much on camera, because when she's on the screen, there's like 3-4 million people who may not care that much about football, but they're only tuned in because they want to see Taylor Swift's face on the screen. And that is the same impact that Deion Sanders has had on college football. When you look at the top 5, top 10 highest viewed games, Colorado is always on that list. As a matter of fact, Colorado is the sole reason why the Big 12's ratings have improved, because most people don't really tune in to a lot of the Big 12 games. The most watched Big 12 matchup, I believe, was BYU versus Utah. That and Kansas State versus Kansas. That was it. So other than those two games, Deion Sanders and Colorado have been still in the show. And ever since Deion Sanders has come into college football, people just can't stop talking about Colorado. This is a program that's been irrelevant in the landscape of college ball for a few decades now. They haven't really been making noise until Deion got there, and prior, they weren't really that good until like the 90s or something like that. And with Deion Sanders here, he has made it where going to a Colorado game is a spectacle. You got celebrities, you got rappers, actors, boxers, all kinds of famous people at these Colorado games. You got all kinds of people tweeting out about Colorado football, rooting for Deion and this team to succeed. Like, the effect that Deion Sanders has had on Colorado and college football as a whole doesn't get talked about enough. And I think that we need to be more appreciative for what Deion Sanders has done for the game of college ball, because he's brought a different audience to this sport that college football has struggled to capture, and that is, the casual fan. The casual football fan, believe it or not, doesn't really watch college football that much. Most people that watch football watch the NFL more than they do college ball. But what Deion Sanders has done, he's kind of done somewhat of a crossover between the two, where the people that grew up watching Deion Sanders playing the NFL, they may have never watched college football before, but they're watching it because they want to see Deion Sanders on the sidelines. Not only has Deion Sanders increased the popularity of college football, but he also has increased Colorado, their enrollment rates at their university, their viewership, the sponsorship deals that he's brought in has racked up over $113 million. He's done a lot, not just for the sport, for Colorado football, but for that community as well. And the prime effect needs to get talked about a lot more than what it does, because Deion Sanders, he's a disruptor. He is somebody who, when he walks into a room, he's able to win in a way that's uncomfortable for a lot of people's liking. A lot of people were against the way that Deion Sanders went about reconstructing and rebuilding this program. They were saying, oh, you can't win with a team mostly full of transfers. You're going to have nothing but a bunch of mercenaries. Yes, you can if you're Deion Sanders. The reason why Deion Sanders can do it and a lot of other coaches can't do it is because he's Deion Sanders. He's untraditional in his approach as a head coach, because the way he's running Colorado is a way that nobody else can run this university. Nobody else can run the football program the way Deion Sanders can because he has that name recognition. He's Coach Prime. When he talks to recruits, when he walks into their living rooms, everybody knows who he is. Most of these high school recruits' parents, their grandma, their grandparents, their moms, their aunties, they don't know who Kirby Smart is. They might have heard of him, but they don't know who he is. Everybody knows who Deion Sanders is. Your grandma's probably like, hey, I remember you with that bald head. You know, like Deion Sanders, it's just every time I watch a Colorado game, I just always tell myself, damn, Deion Sanders is really on the sidelines coaching college football at the highest level. I never can believe it because it's kind of like pop culture has now started to dribble down into college football in a sense because Deion Sanders, with how popular he is, his popularity exceeds college football itself in a sense to the point where he's so big that he just brings his own crowd of people that watch these games only because they care about Deion and they're invested in his cause. You got people that's donating to Colorado that never have donated before because of Deion Sanders. This is the prime effect, people. As much as a lot of people like to hate on Deion and shit on him, you got to show more appreciation for what he's done for the sport of college football. He kind of has already taken a sport that has grown in popularity tremendously over the last couple of years and kind of times two its growth with him now coaching at Colorado. That's the prime effect. Everybody likes to hate on him, and that's cool. If you don't like Deion for your own weird personal reasons, that's on you. But let's not try to, understate the impact that he not only has had on Colorado and the Boulder community, but college football as a whole. A lot of people that haven't watched college football are tuning in waves because of Deion Sanders. I saw one comment on a Colorado Post that said, I live in Africa. I didn't get into college football until Deion started coaching at Colorado. You got people on the other side of the pond who are watching Colorado games who are now getting invested into college football. If you got people from different countries watching Colorado play because of Deion Sanders, then it has kind of expanded, college football's audience. It has expanded its reach with the hiring of Deion Sanders. This is a global name. Deion Sanders could walk into London, Europe, Africa, and everybody know who he is. He's that kind of person where his popularity has transcended the popularity of college football itself to the point where every time you watch Colorado on TV, they're bringing a new audience to college football. I got a few more things I want to talk about before I get up on out of here. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you don't miss when we drop new content and we go live. If you're enjoying this episode, give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast from, Apple, Amazon, Spotify. The links are down in the description down below. If you have any topics or any questions that you would like answered on a future episode, you can send them in the DMs on Instagram at JTSports_ and on X at JTSports__. South Carolina football is surging right now. They are now 7-3 after winning a dogfight against Missouri, giving them their 4th straight win. And right now, this is a team that is better than what their record shows. Josh Pate always says, you're not what your record says you are. And South Carolina is the prime definition of that because they're a 7-3 football team, but right now, they're playing like one of the best teams in the SEC at the moment. And if they never would have got cheated by the refs against LSU, that's the only time I'm going to blame the refs for a loss because it was just absurd how the officiating was in that game, and LSU obviously isn't a good team. So South Carolina, if they didn't get cheated out of that win against LSU, they possibly will have only 1 or 2 losses, and it would be right in the middle of the playoff hunt at the moment. But you lose to Alabama and you lose to LSU, it kind of halted some of your momentum. But right now, with the season about to end, South Carolina is surging at the right moment. And the future looks very bright for this program because Lenore Sellers, this guy is coming on. I remember a few weeks ago, there were South Carolina fans who wanted him benched, but Shane Beamer said, we're not going to bench him because he needs more reps so he can get better. And Lenore Sellers has quietly gotten better every single game. I never would have thought in a million years I would see a game where Lenore Sellers would throw 5 touchdowns in the win. I never thought this day would come, at least against an FBS opponent. I could see him throwing 5 touchdowns against FAMU or Grambling or somebody like that, but to throw 5 touchdowns against a pretty good Missouri defense was really impressive. And on the year, he has 14 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. As long as Lenore Sellers continues this trajectory, South Carolina, either next year or the year after that, not only are they going to be contending for the SEC championship, but they're going to be a potential national championship contender because Lenore Sellers today against Missouri, he couldn't be stopped. He was throwing dimes all afternoon, and when guys weren't open, he was making dynamic plays on the ground with his legs. If Lenore Sellers keeps this trajectory up of his development, he could be what a lot of us thought Anthony Richardson would be before he left Florida, which is pretty much unstoppable. The dude is like 240, 250 pounds, running 4'4", 4'5", has a rocket launcher for an arm. And South Carolina also has a couple of young studs around them. You got Nick Harbor, who we really haven't heard that much of this season. We only really know of this guy because he's a monster on College Football 25. But you got a good amount of young talent on that roster. You got an offensive line that has some young players that look promising as well. The offensive line has been one of South Carolina's biggest issues for the last couple of years, but it looks like they finally got that issue figured out on defense. I hope you can keep Dylan Stewart around. I'm pretty confident that you can. You do got a pretty good collective back there in South Carolina. And if you were able to get Rocket Sanders in the portal, I don't see how you couldn't keep Dylan Stewart around. And with how well South Carolina has recruited and developed some of their younger players, this program, they're trending upwards. And coming into this season, I felt like South Carolina was the biggest sleeper team in the SEC this year. I think their over-under win total was only like 5-6 wins. Had them going 7-5, 8-4, and it looks like not only are they going to exceed Vegas expectations, but they're going to exceed my expectations because they could finish this season with 9-10 wins, which would be really impressive. Because at one point, after South Carolina lost to LSU, it was a lot of smoke and a lot of questions about Shane Beamer and what his future with this program was going to be. But, ever since then, this team, since they lost Alabama, they played some great football. And I love Shane Beamer as a coach because he pays attention to the little things. He isn't one of those guys that only cares about offense and defense. He cares about special teams. He cares about winning in all 3 phases of the game, which is what makes him such a great coach. And I think moving forward, as long as South Carolina continues to do a good job of developing some of these young cats that they're getting via recruiting out of high school, not only are they continuing to build a really good culture down there, but they also are building a program that in the next 4 or 5 years, they're going to be a force in this conference for years to come because people kind of forget that South Carolina in the early 2010s and before, they were one of the more winningest programs in all of college football. I think they're like top 15, top 25 all time in wins. South Carolina has a lot of history. They may not be rooted in the kind of rich history like Alabama and LSU are with a bunch of national championships and whatnot, but when South Carolina was at their peak, when I first got into college football, they were always one of those teams that they were always guaranteed to win anywhere between 9 to 11 games max and maybe get into the SEC title game occasionally. And with how well they've played and them surging down this stretch, I think the future looks very promising for the Gamecocks. And I love Shane Beamer. Beamer Boy, the Beamer Boys, man, you can never count them out because anytime they're a massive underdog, they always end up finding a way to exceed expectations And although they were a double-digit favorite today against Missouri, and Missouri played one of their better games of the season, I think some of that was partially due to Brady Cook and his health status being up in the air. But with how well you looked against Missouri, and Missouri was giving it their all, it gives me a lot of reasons to be optimistic for what the future of South Carolina football has in store. And if you're a Gamecocks fan, your optimism should be at an all-time high, because I think Shane Beamer is on the brink of doing some really big things down there for that program in the foreseeable future. Can we all be honest? We need to stop the hate. Travis Hunter is clearly the Heisman Trophy winner for this season. The Heisman Trophy gets awarded to the most outstanding player in college football, the player who is the most impactful to their team winning. And there's no player who plays a bigger factor in their team winning and losing than what Travis Hunter does, because he plays both sides of the football. For the Ashton Genty truthers out there, he only plays running back. As impressive as a year as what he's having, this is the best running back season that we've seen since Barry Sanders. What Travis Hunter is doing is more impressive, because the dude is playing damn near every single snap. Offense, defense, he's locking guys down that corner. He's routing up guys on the other end, that wide receiver. Travis Hunter, with him playing both sides of the football, makes him the best player in college football, because how is he not when you dominate on both sides of the ball? Ashton Genty only plays one position. Therefore, his impact on the team overall is kind of minimized compared to the impact that Travis Hunter has. If Ashton Genty played running back and linebacker, you could have this discussion, but let's not make it seem like what Travis Hunter is doing right now is something that's been replicated before, because Charles Woodson and guys like Chris Gamble never played both sides at this high as a level as what Travis Hunter is. Travis Hunter could be a top 5 pick regardless of what position he chooses to play in the NFL, rather it be wide receiver or cornerback. That's a testament to how rare this guy truly is. He's an Iron Man. He's playing 110 snaps. And he's playing both sides of the ball at a level of play that we've never seen anybody play before. We've never seen a two-way player in college football this dominant. Charles Woodson, yeah, he played a little bit of receiver, but he was nowhere as good as a receiver as what Travis Hunter is. And we haven't seen a cornerback play a little bit of receiver as well and be as good at that as what Travis Hunter is. He's one of the best receivers in the country, and he's one of the best cornerbacks in the country. He's top 5 at wide receiver and top 5 in the nation at cornerback. It's hard to find any other player in the history of college football that has had the skill set that Travis Hunter has. The man doesn't get tired, which is why I feel he's one of one. We will never see another player like Travis Hunter, because to have this level of endurance, this level of stamina is very rare. Most guys, once they play like 50, 40 snaps, they start tapping the top of their helmet and they got to get out for a few plays. That's not Travis Hunter. He wants to be in every chance he has, and he always is able to make a few game-changing plays in every game that you watch out of Colorado that make you drop your mouth wide open and say, how the hell did he just do that? Today, in Colorado's win against, who did Colorado play today? I forgot who Colorado played today. Utah. So in Colorado's win today against Utah, he mossed literally 3 defenders. Literally 3. It was 3 defenders draped all over him, and he mossed them with ease. All Deion Sanders did was say, fuck it, Travis Hunter is down there somewhere, and just threw it up. Travis Hunter right now, to me, is the most dominant football player that we've ever had in the history of college sports. I don't think we are ever going to see another player as dominant playing both sides of the football as what Travis Hunter is. This dude is shutting guys down that corner and routing guys up, mossing dudes at wide receiver. He has a one-of-one skill set. He arguably is the best player in college football at 2 positions, which is why he deserves to win the Heisman. And if The Heisman voters had any common sense, they will already go ahead, do the ceremony right now, and just go ahead and hand him the Heisman, because Ashton Jeanty is as impressive as how he's been this season or how he's played this year. He hasn't been more impressive than Travis Hunter, because to be this dominant on both sides of the football, you're scoring touchdowns at wide receiver, you're getting interceptions at corner where guys are scared to throw you away, and on offense, guys are triple teaming, quadruple teaming you. That's the definition of what it means to be the Heisman Trophy winner. You're the most outstanding player in college football. You are the most impactful player to your team having success. And with Travis Hunter playing both ways, to me, it makes him the Heisman Trophy winner in my eyes compared to Ashton Jeanty, who only plays one position, and he's doing it against some of the worst competition in all of college football. Now, Ashton Jeanty is a stud himself. He's going to have a great career at the next level, not trying to demean anything that he's done. But when you're comparing what Ashton Jeanty is doing to what Travis Hunter is doing, you're comparing apples to oranges. It really isn't that big of a comparison, because Ashton Jeanty isn't playing both ways. Like Ashton Jeanty isn't Travis Hunter. He's not impacting his team both sides of the ball the way Travis Hunter is doing right now, which is what makes Travis Hunter the definitive and undisputed Heisman Trophy winner, in my opinion. If you feel like Cam Ward should win a Heisman, that's understandable. I would somewhat agree with you, even though I would be a little bit biased because I am a Hurricanes fan. But you know what Travis Hunter is doing is really sensational, and it's just nothing that can make me change my opinion otherwise. Ashton Jeanty could run for 400 yards in the game, and I still say give it to Travis Hunter. Because people don't understand how difficult it is to do what Travis Hunter is doing. We've seen a lot of great running backs in college football before. We've never seen a two-way player like Travis Hunter this dominant ever in the history of college ball. This is it for this episode of JT Sports Live. I appreciate everybody that's tuned in wherever you're watching. Shout out to my guy, Eddie Paludu. He says, if you talk more Steelers football, I swear you'll get more viewership. Shout out to Kate Roan. Shout out to everybody that's tuned in. Before we get up on out of here, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss when we drop new content and when we go live. Give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast from. Apple, Amazon, Spotify. The links are down in the description down below. Share the pod with your friends, family members, and acquaintances if you enjoy. And I will see you